Hey everybody, Andrew from Gameosity here, and today we're going to take a look at a new game going up on Kickstarter shortly from Daily Magic Games. Daily Magic, you might remember, is the company that brought us the Valeria Card Kingdoms line of games, and they've taken a bit of a break from their medieval magical running around to instead dip their toe actually back into the food service industry. One of their first games was about slinging cocktails in a bar. But today we're going to be taking a look at Food Truck Champion. In Food Truck Champion, players are going to be competing to have the best food truck in the neighborhood, and they're going to take their turns in what is essentially an action selection style gameplay, where each action will have a different effect on the game, and will let them either hire some staff to work in their food truck, they will get to buy ingredients, store them, and then make delicious platters of food, which will score them points and hopefully big accolades. And one of the things that we love about it right off the bat is the artwork, and nowhere is that more prevalent than on the food cards themselves, but even the truck player mats look really great. Now remember, this is a Kickstarter prototype, so none of the art is final, and the components will undoubtedly be nicer than they are now, but they already look pretty darn good. And the other thing that the game does that we think is really, really great, just from a design perspective, something we really love, is that each card is useful for several different things. Like, for example, this food card right here. You see how on one side of it, it's got an ingredient type, on the other side, it's got a staff, and right in the middle, it's got the recipe that card could represent. And so each card does something slightly different depending on how it's played. Let's take a look at the available actions. So here you have the food truck, or at least one of the 5 food trucks that the players will be using in Food Truck Champion. And essentially, every turn, you're going to be making a decision of which of these 3 available actions you're going to take. Market research is very simple. You're just going to draw cards equal to your current draw limit. And essentially, if you look at your truck, everywhere that you see a colored in symbol will tell you what the current limit of your truck is. So I can have 2 hired staff, my fridge can hold 2 ingredients, my plating area can hold 2, and I've got a draw limit of 2. So there are ways of upgrading your truck, which I'll talk about in a second, but at a glance you can always tell what your truck is capable of. So market research just means draw some cards. Take charge says you can take your owner card, which occasionally sits on your food truck. You can take your owner card into your hand. And the reason you would want to do that is that your owner card is a wild, essentially, for claiming actions. And the other of your 3 options of what to do on your turn is lead a staff action. So essentially, you will take one of the cards from your hand that you have, and first of all, let's take a look at a card real quick. See here, this is a fantastic example of a card. You've got the staff on one side, the ingredient on the other, and the dish in the center. And so depending on how you use this card, you would care about different parts of this card's graphic makeup. So when we're leading a staff action, we're just looking at the staff that's in our hand. And so you've got 5 available actions, and you will play that action card, and then everyone else at the table will have the choice of either following or doing something else, which will be either drawing cards or taking charge, which is taking their wild card into their hands. The 5 actions are driver. If you do a driver action, you can grab a card from the marketplace and take it into your truck as an ingredient. And of course, you can do that for, you can only hold up to your fridge's limit ingredients. So let's say I was working on a, in fact, let's make something. Let me grab one of these cards. All right, so I'm going to make huevos rancheros. And let's say that that's in my plating area. I can hold one of 2 cards there, and I need cheese, a fruit, and a vegetable in order to do that. So if I were to take the driver action with my truck as it is right now, I could take any one ingredient card, and again, now I'm just looking at the ingredient side of these cards to decide what I want. So I need vegetables. I would take this vegetable. It would go under my truck into my fridge, and I could hold up to two rather, in order to work on my things. But let's say I had hired, and I should probably get to this before I go much further. That's the driver action. I'm going to jump my way down to the manager action, which will let me move a card from the marketplace into my hired staff. So let's imagine that this card was in the marketplace. See, it's got a driver. If I took the manager action, I could move the driver into my hired staff. Now, when I take the driver action, I'm allowed to do it twice, because once for the card I'd play, and then once for the driver. I'm not going to go into like really deep explanations of all the rules here. There will be fantastic rules explanation on the Kickstarter page itself. I just wanted to give a quick overview. So essentially, the manager lets you hire staff, and for every staff you have in your truck, it lets you do that action an additional time, or by without needing to discard cards. The cashier lets you move a card from the marketplace into your plating area as an order, so you can work on additional dishes. The manager, as I said, lets you hire staff. The prep cook lets you move an ingredient from your fridge into your plating area. So let's say I used my driver to get that vegetable. I could then play a prep cook action to move this vegetable card under the recipe that I'm working on. The fact that this is a vegetable just doesn't matter. It just happened to be that. The executive chef is one of the only ways that you can play a card directly from your hand into your plating area. So when you do the executive chef action, you can add a card directly from the ones you're holding. Oh wow, I'm holding a hand of vegetables. That would be really bad in the game. And add it directly to your dishes. As soon as a dish has its requirements fulfilled, you discard all of the ingredients that were on it, and you will score points based on the number of ingredients it took to complete that recipe. Now, the truck symbol is simply there because some trucks favor specific recipes. So, for instance, if I was making this recipe, because it matches my truck, this recipe would be worth an additional point at the end of the game. I'd score the 3 points for having completed a 3 difficulty recipe. Then I would be able to turn that point token over. It's still worth the points, and then I could add it to any section of my truck, and thus increasing the strength of my truck in that area. Either it lets me hire an additional staff, have some more stuff in my fridge, work on more dishes simultaneously, or draw more cards. And you're going to be going through this process over and over again, working your way through recipes as efficiently as you can to try and get high point value recipes faster than your opponent can manage to, because once 2 of the 3 point token stacks are gone, because they're arranged one point, single ingredient, double ingredient, triple ingredient. Once 2 of those stacks are empty, we simply go to endgame scoring, and you will score for the tokens that you have amassed on your food truck. You will score an additional point for every completed recipe that you have that matches your food truck, and for every set of ingredients, each truck has a different set of key ingredients that they're looking for endgame. You will be able to add cards under here for award consideration at regular intervals during the game. Every time you make a set of these ingredients having been cooked, that set is worth 5 additional points at the end of the game. It's very accessible from a mechanical perspective. There isn't a lot of mechanical complexity, and as it's exciting because every time somebody takes an action, you will either be able to follow that action by playing cards of your own, or you'll be able to take an auxiliary action, which is either draw some cards or pull your owner up into your hand to act as a wild for the rest of the game. And that's Food Truck Champion. Now, there are a couple of things about the game that we did find a little fussy or maybe unexpected. Not necessarily bad, but things that we didn't anticipate. First of all, the downside of the constant interaction of everybody's turn triggering everybody else's actions, and I'll talk about that in a minute as a really good thing, means that towards the end of the game, when your truck is really well upgraded and you're taking lots of actions, and your actions have been upgraded, you've got staff, and they're going to multiply the efficacy of everything you do, we found that turns started to drag a little bit, especially when one player might lead an action that said, I'm going to take a couple of ingredients, and then somebody else decides that they're going to do market research, draws a huge handful of cards, and then has to weigh every single one of them to decide, do I want to keep this? How do I want to use it? How does it change the balance of the cards I was already holding on to? How does it interact with the cards that are already down in the market, the recipes that I'm already working on? In the beginning, the first handful of turns are lightning quick. Super, super fast. Because there's very little in the way of these complex decisions. And I just misspeak because decisions aren't complex. But there are lots of things to take into account in what is otherwise a very simple, straightforward game. And so, as people who are, specifically we don't enjoy it when turns drag, Food Truck Champion both is guilty of that and not, because at least it's everybody taking the turn simultaneously. So even if things drag a little bit, at least we're all taking an action at the same time. Another thing that we found that we were just a little disappointed by is the fact that it's really fun upgrading your truck and getting the staff, and then you get the accolades that you can then increase your draw limit, increase your storage, increase the number of staff that you can have working for you. And so when we first looked at it, it kind of almost suggests that everybody's food truck is going to be different, and you're going to be able to take a strategy. I'm going to focus in crew. I'm going to focus in recipe. I'm going to have a lot of recipes cooking simultaneously. And maybe the strategies will be different. But ultimately, by the time you're getting your third or your fourth token, you've kind of upgraded the core things that you care about, and everybody's truck kind of becomes the same truck. They all become the same hot rod by the late mid game, and so it's not like the game has variable player powers or anything like that. So it's not that fair perhaps to complain that everything is the same, but everything becomes the same. It starts the same and it ends the same in a way, and so we were a little surprised by that. What does work about Food Truck Champion is a few things. First of all, I mentioned it before, I think the art is phenomenal, and it really makes the game a joy to look at on the table. Normally, when you're tucking cards under a single sheet, it can get kind of fussy because they knock into each other, whatever. And there's a little bit of that once you've got your accoladed recipes, your award recipes stuck in the top, in addition to your crew and your storage and your recipes on the bottom and whatever. But the truth is, it all works together. The way the cards are formed with that multi-section aspect, we think is really great. And as much as I complained about the fact that turns can drag a bit and it slows the game down just a little bit, the fact that everybody takes an action on everybody's turn, even if it's just to draw cards or to pick up their boss card, their food truck owner card, it means that you're at least plugged in to everything that's happening at the table basically all the time. And if you want to play a really aggressive, competitive style game where you're intentionally scooping the recipes that the other player wants or burying them when you're discarding cards, you can do that, or you can kind of not. You can grab the recipes you want to make, you can grab ingredients, cycle through your deck as quick as you can, and get the recipes ordered and down as quickly as possible, and really race to that finish. And so, in that regard, it's kind of up to the people who are playing to decide what level of aggressiveness the game is going to engender. And so, in that regard, it doesn't bother me. It can either be an aggro game or not, and that's entirely up to your group, and I really appreciate that. Overall, we did have a good time with Food Truck Champion, aside from these little nitpicky things, and we really can't wait to see what the final product looks like after the Kickstarter, because we're sure Daily Magic has a lot of really interesting stuff cooking. That was unintentional, and I'm super embarrassed. Anyway, this is Andrew from Gameosity. This has been a Kickstarter preview for Food Truck Champion. We'll provide links to the Kickstarter as soon as it's up and running, and we'll see you next game.
Enjoy that review? Then please like, comment, favorite, subscribe, and check out our full reviews on Gameosity.com.